Ladies and gentlemen, the unthinkable question is no longer being whispered in the shadows, it's being shouted across the sports. Could the Indiana Fever actually lose Caitlin? The player who transformed women's basketball. The superstar who shattered records. The athlete who packed arenas, boosted television ratings, and brought millions of new fans to the WNBA. Because right now, something feels different. The criticism is getting louder. The media narratives are getting harsher. The pressure is becoming relentless. And with every headline, every controversy, and every public debate, fans are starting to ask a question nobody wanted to consider just a year ago. Is Caitlin Clark being pushed toward a breaking point? From nonstop criticism of her game to endless discussions about her role, her teammates, her coaches, and even her impact on the league itself, it seems like Clark can't make a move without becoming the center of another national controversy. And now, some fans believe the situation has become so toxic that a future trade no longer sounds impossible. Today, we're breaking down the media firestorm surrounding Caitlin Clark, why so many fans feel she's being unfairly targeted, how the Indiana Fever have found themselves at the center of one of the biggest debates in sports, and whether the idea of a Caitlin Clark trade is becoming more realistic than anyone wants. But before we get started, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any breaking WNBA news, Caitlin Clark updates, and the biggest stories in women's basketball. And I want to hear from you. Drop your comment below right now. Should Caitlin Clark stay with the Indiana Fever for her entire career, or could you see her eventually thriving with another team? Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end of this video because what we're about to discuss has the entire basketball world talking. What if the biggest star in women's basketball is being pushed toward a situation nobody thought possible just 1 year ago? What if the constant criticism, the endless headlines, the social media firestorms, and the never-ending debates have created a storm so massive that even talking about a Caitlin Clark trade no longer sounds ridiculous? Because right now, something feels different. The conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark has shifted dramatically. Not long ago, fans were celebrating her arrival in the WNBA as the moment that would transform the league forever. Every arena seemed packed whenever she played. Television ratings surged. Merchandise sales exploded. New fans poured into women's basketball, many of them following Clark from her historic college career. She wasn't simply another rookie entering the professional ranks. She arrived carrying expectations that few athletes in sports history have ever experienced. She was expected to elevate a franchise, boost an entire league, and somehow meet impossible standards from the moment she stepped on a WNBA court. Before we dive deeper into this story, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below, should Caitlin Clark stay with the Indiana Fever for her entire career, or would another team be a better fit someday? Now let's talk about why so many people are suddenly discussing something that once seemed unthinkable. The reality is that being Caitlin Clark comes with a level of pressure that most professional athletes never experience. Every game is dissected. Every quote becomes a headline. Every turnover sparks debate. Every shooting slump becomes national news. Most young players are allowed to develop away from the spotlight, learning through mistakes and gradually adjusting to the professional level. Clark never had that luxury. From the moment she entered the league, millions of eyes followed her every move. Sports television shows discussed her daily. Social media accounts analyzed every possession. Podcasts spent hours debating her impact. Journalists wrote story after story about her influence on the game. At first, that attention seemed overwhelmingly positive. She was praised as the future of the sport. Fans packed arenas just to watch her play. Opposing teams moved games to larger venues because demand was so high. The excitement surrounding her arrival felt limitless. But fame often comes with consequence. The same spotlight that celebrates an athlete during successful moments can become overwhelming during difficult stretches. Suddenly, every mistake receives amplified attention. Every rough performance becomes evidence for critics. Every loss becomes another opportunity for people to question whether expectations were set too high. That's exactly what Clark has faced. As the Indiana Fever worked through the challenges that naturally come with building a competitive team, many observers seemed unwilling to accept the reality that growth takes time. Instead of focusing on development, many conversations centered on immediate results. Why wasn't the team winning more games? Why wasn't Clark dominating every night? Why weren't the Fever instantly competing for championships? Those questions began appearing everywhere. The problem, of course, is that basketball doesn't work that way. Even the greatest players in history needed time to adapt to the professional game. Even championship organizations required years to build winning cultures. Even generational talents faced obstacles early in their careers. Yet Clark often appeared to be judged by a completely different standard. The expectations became so enormous that anything short of perfection seemed to disappoint some observers. That's a difficult environment for any athlete to navigate, especially one still adjusting to the highest level of competition. At the same time, another trend started emerging. The media conversation surrounding Clark became increasingly polarized. Some commentators defended her passionately. Others criticized her relentlessly. Every topic seemed to evolve into a larger debate about Clark's place within the sport. Discussions about officiating, physical play, league popularity, ratings, marketing, and even broader cultural issues somehow found their way back to her. As a result, she became the center of conversations that extended far beyond basketball. Many fans grew frustrated with what they viewed as excessive scrutiny. They argued that Clark was being blamed for things outside her control. They believed she was being held responsible for league-wide discussions that had little to do with her actual performance on the court. Whether those concerns are justified or not, the perception itself became important. Because once fans begin feeling that a player is being treated unfairly, emotions intensify. Every criticism feels personal. Every debate becomes more heated. Every headline attracts stronger reaction. And that's when trade speculation started appearing. Not from league insider. Not from team executive. Not from credible reports suggesting a move was imminent. Instead, it emerged from frustrated fans asking hypothetical questions. What if Clark would be happier elsewhere? What if another organization could build around her more effectively? What if a different market would better support her long-term goals? Initially, those conversations felt unrealistic. After all, why would Indiana ever consider moving the most influential player in franchise history? Why would the Fever part ways with someone who transformed the team's visibility almost overnight? The answer is simple. They probably wouldn't. But that hasn't stopped people from talking about it. Part of the reason is that Clark represents something larger than basketball. She isn't merely an elite player. She's a phenomenon. Her impact extends beyond wins and losses. She drives television audiences. She sells tickets. She attracts sponsorships. She introduces new fans to the sport. That kind of influence naturally fuels endless speculation. Any discussion involving her future immediately becomes a major story because the potential consequences would be enormous. Imagine, for a moment, what would happen if a trade involving Caitlin Clark actually occurred. Sports networks would dedicate entire broadcasts to analyzing it. Social media platforms would explode with reactions. Fans would debate winners and losers for months. Every detail would be examined from every possible angle. It would likely become one of the biggest stories in. That's precisely why the topic continues generating attention despite the lack of evidence suggesting such a move is likely. The idea itself is fascinating. Meanwhile, Clark's response to all the noise has remained remarkably consistent. She continues emphasizing team goals. She continues supporting teammates. She continues focusing on basketball. Rather than feeding speculation, she routinely redirects attention toward improving as a player and helping the Fever succeed. That approach has earned respect throughout the basket. Many athletes would struggle under similar circumstances. Many would become frustrated by constant scrutiny. Many would respond emotionally to endless criticism. Clark has generally remained focused on the game itself. Of course, that doesn't mean the pressure disappears. The reality is that living under a microscope can be exhausting. Every public appearance becomes news. Every comment gets analyzed. Every interaction becomes content. Very few athletes experience that level of attention. Yet despite everything, the Fever continue moving forward. The organization remains committed to building around its young core. The roster continues developing. The coaching staff continues working toward long-term success. Inside the team, the focus is likely far different from what fans see online. While social media debates rage endlessly, players are preparing for games. Coaches are studying film. Front office executives are evaluating talent. The daily work of building a winning team continues regardless of outside narrative. That's important to remember. Sometimes internet conversations create the illusion that dramatic changes are inevitable when reality is far less sensational. Sports fans naturally gravitate toward blockbuster possibilities because they're exciting to imagine. But imagination and reality aren't always the same thing. Still, there is a reason these discussions persist. People care deeply about Caitlin Clark's future. They care because they recognize her talent. They care because they understand her impact. They care because they believe she can help shape the future of women's basketball for years to come. Whenever a player reaches that level of influence, every decision becomes magnificent. Every challenge becomes a story. Every possibility becomes a headline. Looking ahead, the most important factor may simply be winning. Success has a way of changing everything. A strong playoff run can silence critics. A championship contender can erase doubts. Consistent progress can shift narratives almost overnight. The Fever have the opportunity to create that kind of transformation. Clark has the talent to lead it. And if that happens, many of today's debates may eventually fade into the background. Because at the end of the day, the most compelling answer to criticism is success. The truth is that Caitlin Clark's story is still being written. She's only at the beginning of what could become one of the most remarkable careers in basketball history. The biggest moments may still be ahead of her. The greatest achievements may still be waiting. That's why discussions about trades, criticism, and media narratives ultimately remain secondary. The real story is about what comes next. Can Clark continue developing into one of the league's dominant superstars? Can the Fever build a championship contender around her? Can this partnership fulfill the enormous promise that captured the attention of the sports world? Those questions matter far more than any rumor. For now, Caitlin Clark remains the centerpiece of Indiana's future. The Fever remain invested in building around their franchise star. And fans remain hopeful that the journey will ultimately lead to championships, unforgettable moments, and a legacy that extends far beyond today's headline. But as long as the spotlight remains this bright, as long as expectations remain this high, and as long as every development becomes national news, one thing is certain. The conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark isn't going anywhere anytime. And neither is the fascination with what her future might hold. What do you think? Should Caitlin Clark spend her entire career with the Indiana Fever? Or could you eventually see her thriving somewhere else? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more WNBA news, analysis, and breaking stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.